shot between Friday night and Sunday. Let's bring in America's Newsroom A-Team to dig into more on this. Fox News contributor James Freeman is assistant editor of the editorial page at the Wall Street Journal. Mark Lauder, former press secretary to Vice President Pence and former special assistant to President Trump. And Marianne Marsh, former senior advisor to Secretary John Kerry. You know, I stumbled on the numbers there because they kept changing all weekend. It was a devastating story to follow, starting Friday night, now through Sunday. One weekend, more than 60 people shot, more than 10 killed. James.
Yeah, just horrific violence. And there's, I think, a natural exasperation among Chicagoans for an answer here as Rahm Emanuel heads toward a third term. Perhaps he's now got a challenging primary. But this is a jurisdiction that obviously has had pretty extensive gun control for a long time, and that doesn't seem to be a solution.
Seems like we've been talking about this story for years, Mark.
It's not.
And it hasn't changed.
Unfortunately. And I worked for a mayor before I worked for the president and the vice president, and public safety is the number1 priority of every mayor that I ever known and have ever worked for. And this is a complete failure on Rahm Emanuel's part. And it's not just police. Yes, they play a role, but you need community involvement. You need pastors. You need the neighborhood block leaders. This is going to have to be an all-in effort. And right now, we're not seeing that leadership.
We didn't see a lot from Rudy Giuliani, the president's lawyer, over the weekend, but we heard from him via Twitter, and he weighed in on what is happening in that city, saying, give Gary McCarthy your support at Gary for Chicago. We spoke to him last week. Tomorrow, I will get you information to contribute, make Chicago safe again. He can do a lot better than Rahm Emanuel, who is fiddling while Chicago burns. He went on today to slam Rahm Emanuel further, and I want to get this in here as well. 63 murders this weekend in Rahm Emanuel, Chicago. His legacy, more murders in his city than ever before. It's only because of Democrat brainwashing that he even has a chance of remaining. Support police professional Gary McCarthy. And of course, Gary McCarthy's running for mayor, and he's the former police superintendent.
Well, here's the irony. Giuliani is supporting McCarthy, who already had his chance when he was superintendent of the Chicago police. And under his watch, in the first year alone, murders went up 38% over that same time period. On one Memorial Day weekend, under his watch, 43 people were shot. In addition to that, Laquan McDonald, an African-American man who was shot by the police.
So you're blaming the police?
Who was shot by the police. No, my point is, he had his chance to do the job. Now you want to make a mayor? This is not like he's Bill Bratton, who did that in Boston, did that in New York City, then fixed L.A. He did all three. He had his chance. He failed at the job in Chicago. That's why he was fired. The Laquan McDonald verdict is due any day now, and the police officer who shot him was charged with first-degree murder. So I think you have to look at this and say, why not pick someone else?
Yeah, if I'm running Chillicothe, Ohio, that's my job. I'm responsible. The buck stops with me. If I'm running Chicago, Illinois, I'm responsible. The buck stops with me. But Rahm Emanuel is responsible. He's been the mayor of that city for years, and all we do is talk about this every summer. And it goes on, and nothing changes.
Yeah, and it's, I would say that McCarthy owns some of this disaster. Together, they were very close working on this for a long time, got no results. Obviously, since that controversial shooting, they parted ways. But I think the opening here is for someone who can have a solution to the violence, but also we should note Chicago has a financial crisis on top of its violence crisis. So
all over the state.
Right. The state of Illinois and the city of Chicago, huge unfunded pension liabilities. So as Rahm gets into this crowded primary with McCarthy and a lot of others, I think you might see an outsider, or perhaps at least someone who doesn't arguably own this disaster
what's
emerging.
Going to give? I mean, those that have actually chosen to stay in the city, you know, despite the rising violence, they're paying double, in some cases triple property taxes if they're homeowners in that city. I mean, how much further can this go before something truly breaks and people are fleeing the city?
And the worst part is that this violence is primarily ransacking neighborhoods where people can't leave the city. They don't have the economic means to leave the city. Right. Some of the poorest neighborhoods in that city. So the people who can afford to flee will do so and are doing so. What we have to do is find the answer to solving the violence problem in those neighborhoods.
You wonder if you want to bring in outside support. LaShawn Ford's a Democratic Illinois state rep, was on Fox and Friends earlier today, came on TV for one specific reason. He's looking for more help from Washington on this. His suggestion here.
As a Democrat, I come here today calling on the president. He said he wanted to help people in Chicago, accept that help. That's number one. We have to receive the help from the president.
This is something, you worked in the White House. Is it something the White House would get involved in, Mark?
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, let's remember when I was with the president when he went to Detroit and Cleveland to say, what do you have to lose if you're an African American in supporting me? We've seen the results economically. We're seeing it in the president's popularity doubling among African Americans. I wouldn't be surprised if he went to Chicago to meet in these areas with community leaders to try to focus results and find out what works and what can we do. It's ultimately a state and local issue, but the federal government can be a partner.
A lot of people are just saying, Rahm Emanuel, acknowledge it. Acknowledge the problem. We know there's a lot of futzing with the numbers that are happening in that city, but he was seen dancing shortly after we spoke to Jerry McCarthy on Friday, dancing in one of the neighborhoods that's seeing this kind of violence. It's, as Jerry McCarthy put it, a mayor that looks really out of touch with what is happening on the ground there.
Look, the fact is you can have the strictest gun control laws in a state and in a city, but unless every single state has those laws, guns come in from everywhere, number one. Number two, certainly Rahm Emanuel is working on this problem. He hasn't done as good a job as I'm sure he would like or anyone would like. So it's a cultural problem as well. Yeah. There are gang problems there, too. There are a lot of problems to address there. He's trying to do it. He hasn't found the formula yet.
You got to get in the communities. You got to put cops on horseback. You have to be visible.
Well, you have to take back neighborhoods because obviously the broken windows policing that worked so well in New York, over time it did become controversial. I think maybe people forgot how bad it was here before the Giuliani era, basically. And I think maybe that's what's needed in Chicago is a commitment to just not tolerate
just to put a fine point on the numbers, 309 homicides in Chicago in 2018 through July 29. Wow. Where is that ever acceptable? 63 people shot, 9 fatally since 5 o'clock on Friday. 34 shot, 5 killed between 10 a.m. Saturday and 10 a.m. Sunday.
Well, here's the scary thing. Crime, the murders in Chicago as we speak are actually decreasing. As stunning as those numbers are. By the city of Chicago.
Who even whether decreasing or not, still
unacceptable. But what does work is really good community policing. Works every time.
We saw rallies in Portland, Sandra, right?